Okay, let's start off by opening up a new document for us to work with. I'm going to go to Photo and go down to Portrait 8 by 10 because that's what we're going to work on just for now. And let's title this Practice up at the top. And here we have our workspace. So now, just to get an idea as to how this works, we're going to take a look. Over here we have our toolbox where all of our tools are going to be located. You can also collapse this option right here if you would like to shorten where you have to go to get your tools, if you'd like. Notice up here at the top it tells you the name of your file, gives you a little X if you want to close it. If you have multiple documents open, they'll be all listed up here on various tabs and you can switch between them. Also notice over here to the right side you have a bunch of things going on. We have a whole nother set of options that when you click on them will give you a whole bunch of different menus to work within. Now over here we also have our navigator where you can move around your document. You can zoom out, you can zoom in, although there are multiple ways to do that as well. Right down here, the most important, remember we have our layers palette. Remember we have our background layer and that is locked. You should never work on your background layer. You should always work on something else. So let's start off by drawing a couple things. So let's start off by right down here we have our shape tools. These are all considered shape tools. And let's start off with the regular rectangle tool. Now every time that you choose a new tool, you're going to get a whole new set of options right up here at the top. So let's notice we get a pair of crosshairs. And if we take it to our document, if we click and drag with our mouse, notice if you don't let go, you can make it any size that you want. You can make it long and rectangular. You can make it a little bit on the larger side. Once you're happy with what you have, go ahead and let go. Now notice the default turns to black because we have our black and white foreground background colors right down here. But one thing I want you to pay attention to is notice that over here on the right hand side in our layers palette we have a new layer. Notice that it says rectangle 1. It has this little shape icon that you can also see that tells you that this is a shape layer. If you double click on rectangle 1 you can call it square if you wanted to. You can title it anything that makes sense to you. Now if you wanted to change the color of this particular item, all you would have to do is double click inside of that color picker box on your layers palette and choose a new color inside of this window. You can scroll within this spectrum of color if you want to and pick any color. Once you're happy with it, you can go ahead and click OK. Now let's go ahead and take our Move tool, which is a tool we'll use pretty often. If you can't see your Transform tools, they're right up here. The default is turned off, but you can always just turn them back on with that checkbox. From here you can take your rectangle and move it anywhere on the screen that you want to. Notice if you move it off of your workspace, it disappears. So anything you see within that white area is what's going to show when you print. So we can put it here. If you wanted to make this bigger or smaller, you would take your Move tool, put it along the edge. Notice you get that in the larger diagonal double arrow that tells you that you can resize something. You can grab the corner and continue to change the shape. If you press Shift, it will resize it proportionally, which is going to be very important. Now, one key thing I want you to remember is that once you make a transformation, once you change something, you're going to get a no smoking sign and a check mark up here. So it's asking you, Photoshop's asking you, do you want to cancel the transformation that you make or do you want to accept it? More often than not, we want to accept it, and you can either press that check mark or you can press Return or Enter on your keyboard. So let's go back to all of our shape tools and let's take a look at those. Now if you want to, we can click and hold on that. Notice there's a little arrow in that tools option in your toolbox, which is showing you that there are more tools underneath. We also have a rounded rectangle tool. We have an ellipse tool, a polygon tool, a line tool and a custom shape tool. Let's take a look at the ellipse tool. And let's go ahead and draw an ellipse. An ellipse is just a fancy way of saying circle or an oval. Now you can make this an oval if you want. If you press and hold Shift and drag with your mouse, you can make it a perfect circle. And then you can go ahead and let go. Notice on your layers palette, we now have 3 layers. We've added onto it. Shapes will automatically make a new layer. We can also double click on that and change it so that we can see it a little bit differently than the square. Now notice that the ellipse layer is on top, the square layer is below, and the background layer is on the bottom. So this is kind of like a sandwich where the uppermost, like you're layering a sandwich. The top layers are ones that you're going to see above everything else. The bottom layers are going to be hidden below everything that's on top of them. Right now your ellipse is on top, your square is underneath the ellipse. You can notice that because you can't see through the circle, and then your background's on obviously underneath everything. Now say you wanted your ellipse to be below your square. All you would have to do over here on your layers palette is with this little hand is drag it below the square. Now notice when I drag this below, you get that white line that pops up, which is basically telling you that's where you're going to put that layer. Now notice that your ellipse is half covered by that square because we've just rearranged the layers. Now the square is on top, so it's covering the ellipse, and then the background still below. Now you may be saying, well, there's that black line there. That's invisible. It's just what Photoshop calls a path, which is a filled, basically filled shape. So that's really invisible. That's just showing you that it's there. And if you click on square, you'll notice that it will go away. It's just kind of a guideline for you to see. Now you can continue to move these at any time with your move tool. You can put them anywhere that you want. You can resize it. I recommend always resizing with the Shift key. It resizes everything proportionately. If you wanted your circle to be on top of the square, all you would have to do is take that ellipse layer and drag it to that highlighted line above your square. So this is pretty much how we would use the shapes here in Photoshop. Just to add a couple more, let's click and hold on our ellipse tool, and we have our polygon tool. Now notice every time you choose a new tool, you get different options up here at the top. Notice this one gives you sides. Polygons all have sides. You can choose to add as many sides as you want to your polygon. So the default usually is 5. So if we go ahead and draw that, I'm just going to quickly change the color so we can see it. Notice how we get a 5-sided figure. Now if you hover your cursor on top of where it says sides, notice that it changes into a hand with a double arrow. You can drag to the left or to the right to increase or decrease the number of sides. So now we have 14, and we can go ahead and draw that, and notice we have 14 sides. So it's very useful, especially if you want to end up making a specific triangle or a specific shape that has symmetry. This is a very easy way to go about doing that. We also have a line tool if you wanted to make lines, but one other thing I want to bring your attention to is called the custom shape tool. Now, the custom shape tool basically gives you fancy shapes as opposed to geometric shapes. This will give you something a little bit more interesting. Again, here at the top of your screen, you now have options, all these different options that you can draw as a shape as opposed to it being a stamp. And you can press shift with these to get them perfect the way you want them as well. And then the same properties as a shape. You can even see that all of these shapes have the little indication on the layer that this is indeed a shape, which allows you to change the color here. It allows you to move it like a shape. It just allows you to know that this indeed is a shape layer, as there are different types of shapes. Now with the move tool, you can also right click on anything in your document, and it'll give you an option of which one of the layers you want to go to. If you weren't quite sure where it was, you could always right click on it. Say for instance I wanted the square, I wasn't sure where it was in my layer stack. I could right click on it and choose that particular layer. It would bring me right to it. Again, same thing, if you wanted to rearrange your layers, you would just drag them until you see that white line, and you can put them anywhere that you wish. So that's pretty much how you would go about using the layers palette. Remember, everything that's on the top of your layer stack, like your polygon, that is on top of everything else. Okay, and then down here we have this interesting shape, and notice that is below everything else. So think of it as a sandwich. What's on top you see first, what's on the bottom is hidden below everything that is above it. So I hope this answers any questions, and we'll see you in the next one.